So welcome to this session titled Get the Best Out of Your Warehouse Management System. When I made this, I should probably have been in marketing because it's really promising a lot. So maybe I should have added a subtitle, a crash course in on-hand and reservations, because that's what we're going to focus on today. Why is this important? Because it's the heart and soul of the entire WSS system. If you ask me, maybe I'm a bit biased on that. But it's important to understand this because it drives a lot of other things in the system. My name is Leonard Conrad. I'm a developer with Microsoft. Been working on AX for the last 12 years or so. Have experience in inventory and the old WMS module. And I was part of the team that sort of originally handled the BHS acquisition and the integration of that. So I know a bit of history about why some of the things work the way they do. And I might share some of that with you today. So we're going to cover a lot today. As you have seen, the new AX, which I might accidentally refer to as AX7, that was our internal code name, has a lot of good new stuff, new UI, really cool. But we have not changed a lot in the area of reservations and on-hand. So in 2004, I was actually giving a somewhat similar presentation. There we had just released the new version here, or the new version of the WHS system. So I was actually on stage presenting all that. I was super excited. I still am, because it's a fantastic solution if you ask me. Lots of potential, solves a lot of problems that we had with the old system. There are some new things that we have done in the last couple of years, and I'm going to sort of highlight those. But what has happened since last is that we actually had a lot of feedback from customers. I've been involved in some cases, and when I say feedback, it's not so normal that customer calls us, or at least me in the product division, to say, this is great, keep on what you're doing. It's maybe in the other direction that this is not so great, or why are things working the way they do. So just to set expectations here, you might be exposed for bad humor. I apologize for that. But I had to ask Robin, what does a level 300 session actually mean this morning? A bit too late to actually change all the slides. But at least I'm covering some of the green stuff here. Especially pay attention to this. Lessons learned, both positive and negative. So it is okay if I share something with you that is might not completely optimal. The good thing is, for all the scenarios I'm going to go through, I think we actually have pretty good workarounds if you know how to sort of tweak the system there. So I'm going to go into details about that. So the session is sort of divided in 4 main areas. Overall design thoughts. I'm going to plant some seeds at the back of your head. So these sort of thoughts stay with you. Then you will maybe know why the system is behaving the way it does. Then we'll take this crash course where we'll learn everything about the reservations and the on-hand. Move into this tricky scenario session where I'm going to sort of show you some of the cases that customers talked about. And we're going to end up with a bit of architecture where I'm just going to highlight the most sort of important parts of the reservation system. I'm going to do a small modification. The purpose is not to show you a lot of code. It's actually to show you how little code you have to write to change the behavior of the system. So if you're not really into writing code, I would still suggest that you stay on for those last 5 minutes or so, because at least it gives you an idea of, okay, how complex is it actually to sort of slightly change the behavior. There should be time for questions and hopefully also some answers after the presentation. I'll take them after, because otherwise I'll just get carried away, since this is one of my favorite topics. With that, let's jump right into it. So one general design sort of thought that I think about is separation. I think that has been sort of lying at the back of the head of the people that actually did the original sort of implementation of this system. Separation, good in many aspects of life, maybe not so good in others, but let's not talk about that. So what do we mean with that? Well, imagine that we have the sales order system sort of on one side, and then we have the warehouse management system on the other side. So we want these two systems to be separated. Of course, they should sort of support each other. The warehouse management system should support the sales order processing and also the other order modules that we have, production, transport, and Kanban. But this separation means that some dimensions when we take an order regarding an item have to come from the sales order side. They will be seen as picking requirements when they are sort of transferred over to the warehouse management system. So of course the product dimensions, there's no way to really get around that, but also site warehouse and inventory status being a dimension that was introduced as part of this solution. Okay, so once we have the order, once we have decided which dimensions are seen as picking requirements, we move over to the warehouse management system and let the system do what it does best: organize shipments, loads, etc., allocate all the items for the different orders that we're going to pick, and eventually create the work in the most optimal way. So there's a lot of possibility to configure this according to your workflows. My colleagues are giving more presentations on that in some of the other sessions, so I'm not going to go into details about that. So once work has been completed, it is the responsibility of the warehouse management system to sort of figure out, okay, which locations are the best ones to pick from, which license plate are we actually picking from, and eventually shipping out. That'll sort of be reported back, but that's just to keep our on-hand consistent. If you have worked with the WHS system now, you will sort of know that there are a few jokers, batch and serial numbers. They are tracking dimensions. They can only sort of be thought of as defined at one side of this equation. So either it is something that we see as a picking requirement, meaning it has to come from the sales order side, or, this is probably the most fancy animation I have, it will be something that the warehouse management system decides. I'm going to go more into details about this, especially around batch, because it sort of can raise some confusion on what can we support and what can't we support with different setups. So separation, moving in to one of my favorite design thoughts and strategies in life. Good, many cases. Not when it comes to buying your wife's present, but that's another story. So postponement, postpone, postpone, postpone. I'm going to repeat that a lot in this talk. So the idea is we want to postpone decisions about where are we taking the items from as long as we can. So if you've ever worked with sort of the standard AX reservation, you will know that it's very eager to sort of take all the physical dimensions, including the location, meaning we'll do a reservation very quickly, which is most likely not on an optimal location from the warehouse management's point of view. So we are not doing that with this system. We are postponing that decision on where to take the items from. Furthermore, so this would probably be a better location to send the picker to, closer to him. Again, postponement, we don't make a call on what license plate he should actually take unless we have a requirement for that, because it would probably be easier for him to actually just register which one he took when he's at the location. So postponement, good strategy when you're working with warehouse management. So how are we actually sort of supporting these overall thoughts? The idea is that we are storing our on-hand based on what we call a reservation hierarchy. So one way to think about that is this fancy orange thing. So on the top level, we have few details about how much we have on hand. It's the site level that's going to be the topmost level based on the inventory dimensions. And then we're sort of going down the reservation hierarchy to the lowest level where we have all the details about how much is actually reserved on all the physical dimensions, how much do we have on hand on this specific license plate. Why that is a good idea will be shown in the next couple of slides. So this is actually how the reservation hierarchy looks in the new AX. Don't be fooled. It's a very simple thing, but it drives a lot of business processes. So you should really pay attention to how you're setting this up. If you're not working with batch or serial numbers, or you don't have your own customized inventory dimension, it's going to look like this. There's not so much to configure here. So, as I said, we are storing the on-hand based on these different levels in the hierarchy. So on the topmost level, let me see, do I have a pen here? This is level 0. It might be a bit confusing, but the numbers sort of start from the lowest and go down as we know it from a BOM structure. The topmost level is like the item level. So if you're using product dimensions, this will be the level where you have those dimensions on. That is to allow us to actually view how much is available for a given product across all sites. So the topmost level there. And then we're sort of moving down. So the way I normally think about this is like a stair going down, 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 down. And eventually you're at the lowest level, you're at the bottom, and that is where the most specific information is. So here we could see that on a license plate called C4 here, I have one item available. So that's how we're storing the on-hand. So let's just stay a bit in the abstract world and see how a reservation will actually occur when we are doing that. Clearly, this is the slide where you noticed I'm not paid to do slides, but to write code. But just imagine that this represents a site. So it's a simple setup. The site has one warehouse. The warehouse has two locations. Simple. And we have some license plates within this warehouse. So another way to sort of abstract on this is that we could actually think of the site as this conference center site. The warehouse could be this room we're in right now, and we could think of this as the right location. That's not to confuse me, it's my right and probably your left. And the left location. So do we actually have any famous Danish chocolate in this room? This is the hint for you to get up, guys. We do. And also the last one. Yes, we have 4. I was afraid one of you actually ate it. It would sort of pull me a bit off guard. Okay, so we have 4 pieces of chocolate in this room. Right location, left location, 4 different license plates, right? This is how we would represent the on-hand. So the number 4 here tells me that at this site, and I'm assuming nobody else brought these famous gold bars from Denmark, we have 4 available. So in the room we have 4 available. In the left area we have 2. In the right area we have 2. And on the 4 different license plates, that's the chairs right now we're playing with, we have 1 available. So that's how we're going to sort of represent the on-hand on these different levels. So something unfortunate happened to 3 of you. We need to do a reservation. That is actually Philippe, our PM lead. I couldn't find a good picture of a customer, so I had to take him. Philippe needs 3 pieces of chocolate from this room. He doesn't care about what locations we're going to take them from. So let's just see how we would do that reservation. So what we would know is that the room or the warehouse is sort of the lowest level we are being asked to do the reservation on. So we would go in and we would change the on-hand here. So now we have 2 available and we have 2 reserved. We are always populating upwards in the hierarchy. So we would represent that we have 2 here on the side. So 2 is still available. Oh, sorry, I actually made that wrong. It's 1 and 3. I'm confusing myself a bit because he asked for 3. Okay, that's important because on the next slide I'm going to recalculate based on this. Okay, so we have postponed the decision about who is giving up the chocolate, but we have promised Philippe he will get 3 pieces of chocolate. Let's just see how we are calculating the on-hand, because this is quite different from what we're doing in standard AX. Standard AX, we're just summing everything together. We can't do that here. So the easiest thing to illustrate this with is by an example. So question is, how much is available for reservation in the left area, my left area? Let's just see. Step number 1, find the available quantity on the lowest level based on the dimensions we got. So I didn't ask how much is available on a different license plate. Location is the lowest dimensions we got. So that is 2 in the left. Okay, we will remember 2. So the next step is now find the minimum of all the levels above that level. So we are going up the hierarchy. So the minimum upwards is 1, right? Because I just reserved 3 for Philippe, so there's only 1 available sort of in the room. So the result, if somebody asked me, how much can you reserve on the left location? That would be 1. even though there's 2 physically there. Already here, things start to be slightly complicated, right? Because in AX, we are not representing the hierarchies with these fancy orange hierarchies. We are using the on-hand form to show you how much is available. So I use some other dimensions here just to simplify it a bit. I only have 2 license plates, but the scenario is more or less the same. Have reservation for a sales order up here, physically reserved 3, postponing the decision about location and license plate. Then I have available quantity. So the physical inventory here, it's important to know what that is. Physical inventory means if I go down to this license plate and count, how much am I expected to be able to count down there? That's the physical inventory. Of course, that can be wrong, but that is what the system knows. The available physical is how much would I be able to tell a customer or somebody else, how much would I be able to tell them that they could reserve, that I could sort of give them. That is different here. Why is it different? Because of the algorithm I just explained. We have 2 in the left location, but we have, and 2 on the right, that adds up to 4, but we have the reservation on a higher level. So now our algorithm is coming into play, sort of saying that the minimum of 2 and 1 is 1. Therefore, we are seeing 1 here. This is important to notice the difference here because it's different from how we know it from standard items, if you have ever seen that. There you can read this 1 line alone and you will know what the actual quantity is. So we have tried to sort of indicate, and maybe it should have been a warning sign out here, that this is, you need to be alert here. The reason is that this is a WHS controlled item. That's what this check mark tells you, and it's sort of trying to indicate, hey, you need to sort of think a bit more about the numbers here. Is this good? No, I agree, it's not. We actually have it on our backlog to improve this, but it's quite complicated. And let me just tell you why it's complicated. Because in the on-hand form, you can view on-hand for more than 1 item. So if you're viewing on-hand for 2 different items with a different reservation hierarchy, one could have batch number above the location, one could have it on a lower level. We cannot really lay out the on-hand sort of according to the hierarchy because there's no common hierarchy there. So this is maybe a time for me to get some feedback. So how many of you or your customers, partners, are aware of people viewing the on-hand, viewing more than 1 item in the on-hand form at the same time? Can you just raise your hands? Damn, you're making my life hard. I was hoping to see 0 hands. No, that's fine. But that is the reason why this is complex. I think in the future we will probably go to a more detailed view where we can view per hierarchy. Okay, so back to these numbers because it's actually even worse, right? What does it mean, this number here, the 1 here? Well, it means I can reserve 1, or I can promise 1 on the left location. What does the other number mean? It means that I can promise 1 on the right location. But it's almost at the tip of my tongue to say something wrong here. It's an or condition we have here, right? I cannot promise 1 from the left and 1 from the right because that's 2, and then I violate the reservation above me. Okay. I know that's complicated. So actually I once had I listened to a guy, big chief we had, said you have to repeat the message sort of 6 times, then the consumer of the message will receive it well. So obviously he didn't have kids, or at least not my kids, because I need more than 6 times. You're a clever crowd, so I'm just going to repeat it 1 more time. Okay, so in my pockets I have 1 golden caramel. Again, it's the same company. I think it was pretty easy to be marketing when they named this, gold caramel, gold bar, whatever, gold. So 1 in each pocket, slightly melted. I'll put them back down. So I'm going to promise you 1, right? We have agreed, and you will get 1 that's fresh, I promise you that. So if somebody came and asked me, how much can you give me from your left pocket? The answer would be 1, because I didn't promise you which one I would give you, right? I just said you're going to get one. So think of me as maybe the warehouse. Somebody came and asked the same question, how much can I get out of the right one? One. But if somebody came and asked me, how much can you give me out of the left and the right one? It would be one, because otherwise I would be stealing your caramel to somebody else. So I know that's complicated and will probably require some sort of user education to understand that. But now you know, so that's good. So let's move on. That's great. We can do a reservation on a higher level. Fantastic. But what can we actually use it for? Well, in order to understand that, we need to introduce work. Remember, work is what sort of comes out of the warehouse management system, telling pickers to go pick that, pick that, pick that for these orders. So this is a sort of a setup. I have my sales order up here, right? This is the work that was created. Take 2 from the left. Sorry, guys, over there. You're going to lose your chocolate. And 1 from the right. Then let's look at the inventory transactions for this item. So the first transaction up here, you cannot see my cursor, but that is this one. That's the reservation from the sales order. Reserved physical, but not on all the dimensions, right? Decision about location and license plate postponed, right? Because warehouse management system will determine that. Then work is created, and this is also a key point. Work has its own inventory transactions. So it's not like in the old system where the WMS system would take over the transaction from the sales order. No, we are creating new transactions for the work. That's good because it gives us a lot of visibility into where the items actually are within the warehouse if our sort of workflow consists of multiple steps. But notice this, sales order has 3 reserved. I'm taking 2 from the left location and 1 from the right location. So that is 3 plus 2 plus 1. It's hard, but I'm getting a 6 here. So did I just lie to you, or have we reserved too much? No. I just didn't tell you the whole truth. So when we are populating the on-hand for work, we are only populating until the location level, because we know that the dimensions above the location was something that the sales order sort of provided to the warehouse management system. So we are assuming that that reservation was made on that higher level. Therefore, dimensions below location sort of belongs to the warehouse system, not to the order. That's this concept of separation. So if I were to do this reservation here, I would have a 0 on the left, 2 would be reserved, same goes for the right. And then my algorithm works again, because how much is available for reservation in the left? There's a 0 here, and obviously the minimum of 0 and 1 when we go up is 0. So I can take no more from the left location because work has reserved this. So that's actually super smart. It's one of the good things here because it means you can move the items around within the inventory from warehouse from one location to another, only creating work and not affecting the reservations from the higher level. We're just moving from one location, so we're just updating these levels. Yeah, we can only do this if the order is reserved until the location level. Why? Because we have sort of an Uber constraint in the system. So we are sort of referring to it as the no holes slash gaps in the dimensions we are serving against. So I asked my writer to come up with a better text. It was like a 4-line description, so I quickly forgot it. So technical term we are using is holes, gaps in the dimension. Let me just explain what that means and why it's important to sort of understand that. So it is easiest illustrated with an example where we're using batch numbers. So imagine this. I have batch number B1. I have placed one item on my peak location, one item on my bulk location. Same goes for batch number 2. I have placed one item or one piece of batch B2, on the pick location and 1 on the bulk location. So my on-hand would look like this in this representation. And let's just imagine that I try to meet this requirement, reserve 2 pieces of batch B1 on the warehouse, postpone the decision about what location you're taking them from. Would be great to do this, but let me just show you why it is not possible. So I would go in here, update to 0 and 1, find the other batch number, update to 0 and 1. I don't know what location to take them from. I mean, nobody has told me that. So what can I do? It's very easy for us here to figure out that there's 2 locations, so maybe I could do some fancy algorithm. But this is generic. I mean, if you have 1,000 serial numbers spread across the warehouse, it just doesn't work to try and figure something out. So stay with me here. We would go up, and then we would say that, okay, 1 plus 1 is 2. We are sort of going to update that level because we knew that it was the warehouse. We were told to do that. And we always know the size based on the warehouse. So now our on-hand would look like this, obviously looking like a 5-year-old who have drawn these numbers. I apologize for that. But is this good or not good? It is bad because we have a problem on the location level now. Because remember the algorithm. Somebody asked me, how much can I reserve on the location level? I would read at 2 because we didn't update that level. I would move up, find the minimum. The minimum is 2, so it would look like I could actually reserve 2 on the left location, which clearly I cannot because we promised that batch number to somebody else. So we are doing a lot of stuff. It doesn't mean that you cannot do reservations as a user where there are holes in the input. We are doing a lot of stuff to actually determine the missing dimensions to avoid this problem. But if you ever try and customize anything, or you have a developer saying, hey, let's just do this quick fix for batch numbers, I warn you, that is not a good idea. You're going to end up with problems that somebody is sort of trying to allocate the same batch number. So there are a few other constraints or features in the system. I would actually call some of them features because they are by design. So dimensions above the location, the warehouse worker cannot change them. They're seen as hard picking requirements. So there's no way to sort of tell them to pick another batch number if that was above the location. Need to roll back and sort of redo the work. Obviously, this also goes in the other direction. Once the work is created, we cannot just change the sales order line. If we figure out we wanted another dimension, then we are blocked. We need to sort of roll back the work again, issue a new picking request so the warehouse knows, okay, what am I actually being asked to pick? So we are losing maybe some flexibility there compared to standard system, but at the same time, the concept is clear. I mean, we don't have this concept of fixed dimension trying to figure out what can the warehouse worker actually change or not. Reservation until the location level is required. That is what I just sort of explained here. We cannot have these gaps. So therefore, we are always trying to drive the reservation until the location level if we want to create work. Of course, if we are not creating work, it's a completely different story. I'm going to cover that later. We cannot do reservation below the location if we want to create work. Why? Because then we would sort of drive the reservation all the way down to maybe the location level from the sales order. But remember, work assumes that it can do the reservation until the location level. So we would sort of end up with a double representation of that reservation there, which is not correct because at some point we will sort of not have enough on the location. So therefore, those two sort of reservations need to be balanced. We are only working with physical dimensions. This concept of non-physical inventory is not used in the WHS solution. And we can only support blank dimensions at the lowest level in the hierarchy. Out of the box, that is serial numbers. Okay, let's just take a deep breath after that. But believe me, all this is good because it enables us to do a lot of good things within the warehouse, and we still have quite a lot of flexibility in the sales order. So we are moving into the tricky scenarios here. First one I'm going to do, and I'm maybe going to put up the pace a bit here, sales orders on packing station. So we have the ability to sort of set up our workflow in a way so when I release the sales order to the warehouse worker will go pick up the items. He will put them down on a location that is designated as the packing station. Later in that process, packing will occur. It's another process where maybe you pack 2 orders together or multiple orders for the same customer. So something else is taking over. Let's just see that. And now I need to switch. Get over here. So I have prepared a sales order here. It's because it timed out. I mean, I started it with this presentation, and I think it'll time out after, I don't know how many minutes. Somebody else is covering that in another session. So I'm going to try and release 3 to the warehouse. I'll do the reservation. Notice that I only have access to the dimensions above the location here because I'm expecting that I will create work, and work will then handle the rest. Great, so I lost connection to my machine here. Did I lose even more connection? No, that is not the machine I want. This box is actually located in Redmond, so it shouldn't really be that far to connect to it. Maybe I lost something else. I lost direct access connection. Okay. I'm hoping I'll have more luck here. Okay, so I actually made the reservation. Physical reservation is a requirement in order to release the sales order to the warehouse. We are always requiring the items to be reserved physical before the warehouse can actually start doing any work. I'm releasing, so now I should get some work created. That is my work. So I'm just gonna process this work. Picking up 2 from the left location. Picking up 1, if I can spell it correctly, from the right location. So let's just quickly take a look on the transactions. So now I've picked up the items. They are sort of on the user. You have not put them down on the packing station yet. Okay, so what is interesting here is that we have 3 reserved for the sales order. We have 3 reserved for work. That reservation is on the user location because we have picked them up from the 2 different locations. That's how the transactions look right now. So now I'm putting it down on the packing station. And let's just look at the transactions. Again, 1 reservation, that's the sales order 1. This is what some people have objected against, because right now we have sort of picked the items for this order. We have put them down on that packing station, expecting that somebody else will pack them eventually, but we have no reservations helping us here, right? The sales order reservation is not pointing to the packing location. That is just ensuring that we will be able to get free from within the warehouse. So you have to be careful if you're using the packing station. Don't let your location directories point to that one. Then you will not, because then you will be able to actually create work against the packing station. That is not normally something you want to do. Which sort of sets me up for the next topic. To great surprise, people actually want to make items unavailable when they are within the inventory. So there's many reasons for doing this. We have had quite a lot of interesting cases. One customer received the items on the inbound dock. They were sitting there for 2-3 days because they had to sort of do some inspection, and they didn't want sales orders to actually be able to sort of reserve before these items were moved into the picking area. There's many other reasons why you would maybe want to make items unavailable. So we have good sort of mechanisms for that, but it all sort of builds upon the idea of reserving stuff. So a reservation will make items unavailable for others to actually take. So these three sort of inventory status blocking, quality orders, and manual inventory blocking, they are all built on the same concept, inventory blocking. And let me remember to switch here. Let me just show you that. So I set up another item here. I'm going to reserve a block 10. We always need to put in the side. That's a sort of AX constraint. That side is a mandatory dimension. So what has happened now is I've created this blocking, and underneath we have created two inventory transactions, a reservation on 10 on the side. Again, we have postponed the decision about what actually to reserve because the reservation is just on the side level. And we have an order transaction. That means that a sales order could actually reserve against this expected receipt. It would never be able to sort of get a physical reservation until this blocking removes its own reservation. That's because this check mark here is set. If I remove this one, and let me just add the warehouse as well, transactions look different. Only the reservation now, meaning no sales order will be able to sort of reserve against this blocking. They appear as they are not available in the inventory. You can go count them for sure because physical inventory is represented, but we have a reservation, meaning they are unavailable. And just check here, warehouse is now sort of pushed down, right? That's actually pretty fancy. I mean, the reservation I did started on the side level. I just changed the dimension, and then we pushed it down to the warehouse level. Sort of great potential there to actually build fancy stuff where you're sort of using the reservations to allocate items on different levels, making it more and more specific. But that's a different talk, unfortunately. Okay, so that was the inventory blocking. So as I said, there's like 3 different ways to do this, and one of them is to use an inventory status, which is blocking. The only thing that means is that it is set up with this check mark. If that check mark is set on an inventory status, we will trigger this sort of blocking to be this inventory blocking to be auto-created. And I already cheated and gave you the demo. So just to sort of take it, what options do you have if you want to make the items unavailable for sales order, transfer order, production reservation? So typical scenarios, we have a PO created, right? It's in an order state. We haven't received the items yet. If we want to make the items unavailable for sales order reservation at that point in time, before we have even received it, we need to do something. So the solution here is, 1, we can either create the PO with a blocking inventory status. Then our transactions will look like this. we'll get this reserved order, and the sales order is it's not possible for the sales order to reserve against the PO. If we would actually like the sales order to be able to do the reservation, but sort of prevent it from going to the physical state, because if we prevent it for the sales order from going to the physical state, we cannot release it to the warehouse. So we're sort of preventing the sales order from interacting with the WHS system, which many people actually want. But if we want the sales order to be capable of doing the reservation, we need another type of blocking, right? The one with the expected receipt. That is not the inventory status block. That you can achieve with a manual blocking or with a quality order. So you can actually set up quality orders in a way by having them non-destructive. So it means that we are sort of expecting to take the item, look at it, and normally it should go back into inventory. Then the transaction will look like this. You can trigger quality orders on different sort of trigger points in the PO process, where the product received is like the earliest one you can do. The main difference here is that allows the sales order to actually do the reservation. Where if you use the blocking status, the sales order will not be able to do any reservation. So you basically cannot see the customer calls to have these items. No, they are not available. They are in a different status. Okay, so the sales order could do that reservation. At some point, we will receive the items, hopefully, otherwise it's not so good. Then they will be physical, right? The second the transaction becomes sort of physical in our inventory, we have received the items, the reservation on the blocking is sort of lifted to reserved physical. But the other part of the equation is still not changed. It is still ordered here, and the sales order remains in this reserved order state. Good thing is, we can move the items around, right? Because we can use work. This blocking is only on the higher levels until the status. So as long as we don't block on a particular location, we still move items around. Of course, if we block a location, we cannot move the items. We don't have means to that. Good thing is, when I go back next week, we're going to work on that problem. So once you remove the blocking, whatever kind of blocking it is, the sales order can now reserve physical, and you have sort of achieved making items unavailable while they go through some kind of process. And when you get rid of that blocking, sales order can be reserved physical. Because it can be reserved physical, it can now be released to the warehouse. Of course, you can also just use an inventory status, create your sales order with one status, your PO with another one, then they won't match, so you cannot do the reservation. You will then later have to change the status of the PO to actually make it available for the sales order to reserve. Sort of a different alternative. We have a few more tools in our box. Batch disposition code. Disposition codes only work for batch above. Location directives only works for work, right? It can only help us to say that we cannot create work against these locations over here. But the sales order can still have the reservation. Next thing I'm going to demo is negative inventory. We hate it, but we acknowledge we need to support it. Especially for retail scenarios, I know that it's very common that the stores are not completely sort of on hand, maintaining the on hand. So let me just quickly demo that. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, you can probably imagine, somebody were not so satisfied with the original functionality. So I've created an item here. I think the important thing is the model group is set up to allow negative inventory, right? So I'm telling on the model group, this item can go negative. I have on hand on 2 different warehouses within the same site, 3 pieces on each. And let's see what happens if I am adjusting this. So let's just say I have -4 here. Okay, so warehouse 24 went negative, -4. But notice what happened down here. We have -1 available physical on warehouse 25 because we adjusted on warehouse 24. What's wrong? Nothing is really wrong, because remember our algorithm, right? So I started out with 3 on each warehouse. That aggregates up to 6 on the site level. Now I changed the one side of that sort of aggregation. So I have 3 plus minus 4. That's minus 1 on the site level. So that is what we are seeing here. That is why we see minus 1 here. I'm just telling you as it is. I told you I would be honest about things. So maybe you don't think this is so good that if your stores go negative, it actually impacts your DC. Good thing is there is a different, there's a different way to configure the system. What the non-negative. So exactly the same setup, except that this item does not allow negative inventory on the model group. So I'm not allowing that. But I can go into the warehouse. And I can say that this warehouse allows physical negative inventory. So if you have a store, for instance, you would probably set it up this way. Let's just do the quantity adjustment. Now that adjustment did not affect the other warehouse, because when the warehouse is sort of the driver of the negative inventory, we are not propagating negative values up in the hierarchy. We are sort of stopping that propagation on the warehouse level. This has saved us many times, I would say. So the final thing I'm going to show you is working with batch numbers, right? I told you in the beginning, batch numbers, serial numbers, they're sort of jokers, right? Because they can be defined at one side of the sort of the order processing or on the warehouse management system, not on both. So if you place the batch number above the location in the reservation hierarchy, it would look something like this. The implications of that are the warehouse worker cannot change the batch number. So it is solely a decision coming from the order side of view. The good thing is all the FIFO logic that we have, same batch attributes, all that can be used with this setup. Reservation can be postponed until load posting. So the sort of not ideal thing here is if you do the reservation very early, we might pick some batch numbers that meet the customer requirements, but it might not be the batch numbers that would be the most optimal ones to actually pick from a warehouse point of view. We can't really win on both fronts. So the other alternative is we place the batch number below the location. Then, if we want to create work, we cannot choose the batch number on order entry, right? Sales order guy or person cannot choose the batch number. Why? Because if we think back to the original constraints, if we added the batch number on the sales order line, we would need to do a reservation in order to create work. In order to get the reservation on the batch number, which is below the location, we would need to fill in the holes in that reservation. In order to fill in the holes, we would go up the hierarchy, meaning we would get a reservation on the location and the license plate, but now we can't create work because we would have a double reservation. So it's not so easy to actually solve supporting both flows. If the batch number is below, obviously it's something that the warehouse worker chooses, right, or the warehouse VSS system. We still have sort of some FIFO support there. We can sort of guide you to find the best batch number, but sort of FIFO rules, same batch, disposition codes, customer sellable days, we can only apply them once we actually know the batch number. So it's sort of a bit late in the process, right? So if you can live with that, maybe this is the best choice for you. The problem is that customer calls, okay, I need 3 pieces of some item that is batch controlled, batch is below location. Can you reserve? Yes, you can. But once you actually create the work for the warehouse, there's no guarantee that you have a batch number in the warehouse that actually met his requirements, because we postponed the decision about what batch number to take because it was below location. So let me just show you how long you can actually postpone that reservation. And I should point out that what I'm going to show you now is actually an improvement done, I think, in CU9. But I'll actually have to check that. So I've created a sales order here for a batch controlled item. I haven't done the reservation. I have batch numbers spread across, I have 6 different batch numbers, quantity of 1 for each. So I need to reserve 3 different batch numbers for this order. So the good thing is, I'll release this load, meaning warehouse, you take over now. Oh, there's obviously no errors right now because I haven't released it. And panic, or maybe not. Let's just read, what is the system telling me here? To be assigned to wave blah blah blah, load lines must specify the dimensions above the location. Okay, so it's actually informing me about this sort of constraint, right? To assign these dimensions, reserve and recreate the load line. We should actually get rid of the recreate because we're smart enough to do that ourselves now automatically. So it's just a hint. The way these labels or these texts are written is, first, what is the problem? And second, what is the possible solution? That is something our writers are very keen on providing, and I think it's a good thing. Okay, so the reason why the reservation didn't happen is because I haven't set up this warehouse to allow reservation during load posting. So I'll now do that, just enabling that here. So now the system is sort of chewing out which batch numbers it should actually take. We see right now I have 3 load lines, before I had 1. And if we look at the work here, system has figured out that warehouse worker needs to go and pick up batch 1, 2, 3. So that is sort of the latest point in time where you can actually postpone that reservation if you have batch above location. And let me just show you one other thing here. So have you ever thought about these reservations that they only occur above location, right? It was only the batch number here that I reserved against. Well, not always. So if we look at this journal, it's a movement journal, meaning I'm going to take 3 out of the inventory. I've only put in site and warehouse. And if I click the reservation button now, I have access to all the physical dimensions. So this is sort of similar to what we know from standard AX functionality, right? The form looks a bit different, but all the dimensions here, I can choose which ones I would actually reserve if I had this batch on different license plate. And if I didn't want to choose that myself, the system would just automatically figure out some. So we have 3 reservations, including sort of all the physical dimensions. So there's no postponement of anything here for this journal. And why is that? That is an excellent question that I'm glad I asked myself, because I can actually answer it. It all leads down to the architecture. So when we sort of took over this system, it could only support 1 reservation hierarchy. And there were a few limitations with that. So we thought about, okay, it's actually a pretty cool system, right? Reservations, we can sort of postpone all those decisions about, okay, which batch numbers do we take, what locations, etc. The only problem or challenge is that reservations actually drive a lot of other functionality in AX. For instance, here, let's say I wanted to transfer out 1,000 batch numbers on a license plate. I mean, nobody wants to key in 1,000 batch numbers on the journal line, right? It's much easier just to say, reserve those 1,000. Reservation figures out all the physical dimensions, and we just post the journal and we're ready to go, right? Sort of that's the reason why we like to get all the physical dimensions on the transaction, because then they're ready to sort of be moved to the next stage. So me and some good colleagues, Per Lykke, for instance, we thought long and hard about this, and unfortunately we didn't come up with the perfect solution. So when you cannot come up with the perfect solution, what do? You will place the responsibility on somebody else, and that would be you guys. No. So the thing is, it's pretty hard to know when are you actually done with adding the dimensions for a sales order. We don't really have sort of a good process for that right now. So we could sort of have done nothing, just saying that, okay, when you think you are done, key in all the dimensions. But that would be slightly annoying for people that actually only wanted to key in the side warehouse and just release to the warehouse, not caring about serial numbers or batch numbers and stuff like that. So we made a call, which I'm going to explain you in 1 second. Let's just move to that one. We introduced something called reservation strategies. So this is sort of the way, the sole purpose of these strategies are just to figure out how do we handle missing dimensions. So if I'm being passed dimensions with holes or dimensions that doesn't sort of add up to the location level, what do I do about it? So we have one called all. I think you can all guess what that does. That was the one I used on the journal. It just figures out all the missing dimensions, right? So I gave it side warehouse, it figured out batch numbers, etc. Well, the other one, above location, guess what? That's the one that determines that I need to deduct the dimensions until the location level. The none is the one I used on the inventory blocking. That basically means don't try and deduct any dimensions. Just try and reserve based on what I am giving you, what the system is sort of giving the reservation engine. So if there's no holes in those dimensions, we'll just do the reservation on that. Why am I bringing this up? Because maybe you at some point want to do your own. I've had partners asking about that. But before we go to that, let's just take this. So one important thing is, in order to have these reservations on different levels, we of course need a better data model, right? So key point here is that this table has been introduced, WHS Invent Reserve. That is where the information about the available quantities and the reserve quantities lives for WHS items. So if you recall the picture I showed you at the very beginning with sort of the staircase, that was actually the content of that table just laid out in a form. What you should pay attention to here is that these 4 fields are a no-go for WHS items. They are not maintained correctly, so you cannot address them directly in code. Or if you are sort of adding them in forms, they don't have the right values anymore. Because we can have the reservation on all those different levels, but here we only have one record. So if you have code relying on this, you need to upgrade it. The good thing is, my good colleague, Vanya Lebedev, wrote an excellent blog posting on how to do this. And what else should we notice here? We can only have one hierarchy for an item in a company. So we cannot really maintain like 2 different hierarchies. That would be nice, but we can't. Okay, so we got the strategies right, above, all, and none. So what is actually determining what we do? That is coming from the movement. So the invent movement is just a class sort of representing different order lines. So we have one for sales, one for production, one for transporter, one for Kanban. Why am I taking these 4 out? That's because those are the 4 order types we can actually create peak work for. So for the journal, we cannot create pick work, so there's really no point in trying to postpone the reservation, right? What drives whether or not we will do the reservation on the levels above location is actually just defined by this method, can have reserved work, which I'm in a second going to show you how to modify. These are the core reservation classes. I think the key point is if you are doing code or anything, just notice it's still the same sort of base class you need to call into. These classes up here responsible for building the queries that actually qualifies what on hand do we want to try and reserve against. To sort of make it a bit easier to reuse this, we have collections over the queries here that we eventually can enumerate using an enumerator. So all this code is sort of decoupled from the core reservation. It's just consuming this. Good thing is this code can be used in other parts of the system. So if you want to sort of mimic what the reservation engine will do, these classes are available and you can do that. We are actually using that ourselves when we're trying to create movement work in some scenarios. If we move across warehouses, we need to sort of figure out more dimensions. Which leads me to my sort of final section here. Most common extensions. Can you imagine that people have actually asked, how can I change the system? Yeah, those are good questions. So how do I reserve on all dimensions from production order? Somebody didn't really want this mechanism that we had built in with postponing the decision about what dimensions to reserve on. So for production order, he wanted something different. So let's just see again. Where would you put that code? It is specific to an order type. So it is one order that should behave different from the others. Therefore, it would be a modification to this method. If it was something common for all the order types, you would do it in this class. Sort of have logic to say, if the warehouse is WHS enabled, we will assume that you want to create work for these orders. If it is not, you cannot create work. So therefore, we have sort of generalized the strategy there. Somebody used a third-party logistics provider to actually pick the items. So they just wanted to do the reservation on site warehouse. But once in a while, a customer requested a specific batch number, and they needed to sort of send that information to the external system. So they wanted to use batch above strategy. But the annoying part was that it was maybe only 5% of their customer asking for the batch number. The rest, they were perfectly fine with letting the third-party provider decide. So what did they do? They created a strategy that only reserved against the warehouse level, postponing the decision about what batch to take. Then they could actually just add the batch number on the order line because it was still above location. So that was a way to get around that. Finally, and this one I thought was actually kind of funny. How do I enable my warehouse for WHS processing, but postpone the decision about that I'm actually going to use WHS? So they were spreading out AEX on different warehouses, and they could not train, as far as I recall, they could not manage to actually train all the personnel there. So for a while, they needed to use the old processes, the old WMS processes, right? But they didn't want to sort of do duplicated setup, which would be super annoying. They wanted to enable the WHS warehouses, at the same time just set up everything, but postpone this decision. So how did they do that? Let me show you. Do we still have connection? We do. So we are almost there. I just need to write these last 100 lines of code. No, I don't remember. I told you the purpose is not to write a lot of code. The purpose is to show you how little code you need to write, right? So what am I doing here? For the sales order, it was only sales orders they were using. I am just saying, well, if the sales order line has a warehouse, and this warehouse is not ready for WHS processing, so I just added a new field to the warehouse table, the invent location, using extensions, which I'm sure other teams will cover how you actually do this stuff. But let's just see. So if this field is if this check mark is set on the warehouse, it is ready for WS processing. If not, well, it's obviously not. And we are and I'll just create a new sales order. So this is just an item from the demo data. So warehouse 24 is not ready for using WHS, but notice is enabled for warehouse management processes, right? Meaning it can have all these license plate locations. So key point here is now the reservation form appears differently. I can access all the inventory dimensions, and when I reserve, the system will figure out all these missing dimensions. And what the customer could do was he could just generate this picking list using the old processes. And we have a picking list with all the dimensions, because the dimensions actually come from the inventory transactions, and because they're reserved, they have all the dimensions in this case. And we're done. So if I just enable this check mark, I can actually maybe do it. I'm coming in a little hot here at the end. So let's say they actually trained the people. And we're back to where we started, right? So now they could actually sort of change over to using WHS. Few hints. There's a cleanup job, great for performance. I'm going to talk about that Thursday. There's a few consistency checks. So if you ever try to do a migration, we have customers doing that. New consistency check on inventory transaction will check whether you have any holes in your transactions, which is a good thing to get corrected, because your on-hand consistency check can rebuild your on-hand for WHS items, but it's done based on the inventory transactions. So if the transactions are off, your on-hand will still be off. Finally, you can actually change the reservation hierarchy here. Sort of if you figured out that batch above was maybe a bad call for you or the customer, you can change it to batch below. Also, when you have transactions, this is just done as a periodic task because it's going to take some time to actually recalculate the inventory. A few resources on how to update the code, reservation white paper. Our blog is always a good place to go. Did you get it? I'll put it on later then. This is the advertising. Notice a lot of good WHS stuff here from my colleagues. Oh, I must have forgotten to take that slide out, or did I? Was it intentional? I'm giving a presentation Thursday with Philippe on performance. So that session is focused on how do you actually set up the system so it performs the best as possible. So we're going to talk a bit about what we actually fixed, improved, but we're going to focus on what you can do, right? Not all that boring stuff about how good we what fixed a lot of stuff. No, what can you do? Few things before I let you go. We should actually have time for a few questions. Thank you all for staying with me. I know it was a lot of talk. It's getting late here, but thank you. I actually didn't see anybody leaving the room, so really thank you for that. I think I'm supposed to tell you that you are maybe supposed or should fill out some feedback or something. So please do that. I think maybe the computer's out there for that. If you feel cheated that you didn't get any Danish chocolate, I actually brought some. Notice that I'm saying that after I told you to fill out the feedback schedule. So feel free to come up and take some. And let's open up for questions if there are any.
What about license plate? Since items can be in license plates that are in license plates that are in license plates that are in license plates, how do you keep track of that, or is it just the first level?
Excellent question, and I should remember to repeat it. So the question was, license plates can be within license plates that can be within license plates. How do you keep track of that? So in the on hand, we only keep track of what is physically in our inventory. So whatever license plate you sort of registered the items in on, that is the one you will be able to see in the on hand form. So you will not have a good view of that these items are inside another item, not from the transactions or the on hand. Yes, down there. So I think as far as I heard the question was, when I get something in for a back order, right? The next sales order can actually get those items. Was that correct? Yeah. Because you don't really have a handle into what was coming in from the back order. Is that correct? What you need to do there is you probably need to mark against the PO. So the items are coming in, right, to fulfill the back ordered sales order. Yeah, then you would need to somehow prioritize the sales orders to sort of release them in a sequence to trigger the reservation. I think that the sales release picking list has some options of actually looking at your sales orders and then determining which one should you actually reserve. So if you stay around, I can maybe show you that form. Okay, I think maybe the rest of the crowd have a hard time following, but I'll repeat what you said. The problem is sales order 1 is created, there's nothing on hand, so it cannot reserve. Sales order 2 is created with automatic reservation, so it will snatch whatever is on hand, right? And the solution is maybe to sort of don't auto-reserve, but use some other process that prioritizes or orders the sales order, maybe based on creation date, delivery date, etc., and then release. Then they will sort of reserve the first orders that are being processed during the release process. That's the periodic job for releasing that can do that. I think maybe we have time for a last question. Anybody dares? Yes?
I have a batch label item. If you use this functionality, the batch about, when you perform the reservation and then execute the board, and then release the board is listed maybe in a incorrect the worker, because the worker needs to visit the first location to pick the first batch, then go to other location, then go back to this location.
Yes.
Is there any way to order the work?
Good question. Let me quickly repeat. The problem with batch above is, well, we will reserve all these batch numbers, we will create the work, but the batch numbers are in some locations, right? And now the work might be creating according to the batch numbers. So you need to organize the work so it's actually being sorted by the location according to whatever is the most optimal one. So yes, I think you can just sort the work not according to batch, but according to location. That there is
By calling something?
no. I think you can actually set that up on the location directive. There's the possibility to say how are we going to sort. I can see somebody nodding. Maybe you can actually tell them out. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, Emma, I think I'm out of time. It says 75 minutes here. So thank you all very much for using your time in this session.